and that's great. And that's how we do it. Now we need to also work with the displaying the progress when it's working, and for that we are going to use the batching. So if I scroll up in the I need to go into the queue page here. So any topic you want to navigate, you go just here and click there. That's quite easy. So we have job batching here, and we can define job batches. And for that, we need to use a batchable trait. So we need to use this, and then we can define a batch. And in batch, we can define like, for example, we are processing 300 requests a time. We can put like this, 300 each time. And it's going to run and dispatch the batch. It is going to give us ID, or you can get the complete batch detail. And using that batch detail, we can show the progress. Alright, so working with batching, first of all, we need to run this command to create a database table. And here, I'm gonna say Control-C to stop this processing for now. And I'm gonna run the command here. So once I run this, it creates a migration file. We run php artisan migrate. Now, if I go back to the database, we will have the job batches. So now we will be having a new batch whenever we will be dealing with the data. So it will come here, and through that we can get. So you can see here we have table column like total jobs and pending jobs. So we can calculate like how much time it is going to take, and how many jobs are done, how many jobs are not done, something like that. Failed jobs, everything detail is here. Alright, so let's deal with this. So if I go up here, let's go straight up. So here where it says job define batchable jobs, we need to use this trait. So let's do that. So in our code, we need to go to the process employee. On top of it, before dispatchable, we put the batchable. Now batchable, as we are viewed, we need to include it on top as well. So this trait is gonna be useful. Alright, what else we need to do? So if you want to cancel it, you can do it this way. And we need to define a batch like this way. So if I want to define a batch now, in this, in our case, we can use this method. So let's do this. So I'm gonna call this inside our controller. So here we need to use this batch. So I'm gonna copy this. Also we need to use bus. Let's copy both of these. Go back to the code editor. And here we need to go to controller. And on top of it, I'm gonna call this too. Great, so here where we are calling the employee queue, and I'm just gonna comment this. Before this loop, I'm gonna say bus, and then inside this bus there is a method with name of batch, and I'm gonna pass an empty array to it, and then I'm gonna say dispatch. Alright, and here I'm gonna say $batch. So when you dispatch this batch, put the value in here, the detail of it. So here inside it, inside this loop, we can add data like this. So that can get inserted right there inside batch array, empty array. So here what we can do, we can call this queue like this, a new process employee, and here we need to pass the data that we are passing. So just like that. Alright, so it adds it, and yeah, this should do the trick. Now if you want to see the details, now we are saying jobs added, we can return the details here, return, and what I say, dollar batch and ID, or let's say return dollar batch, so that we see what detail we get all together. And yeah, I think that's it. That's all we need. So, and I go back here, and this time when I hit submit, you can see that it returned an ID. It's done total job 0, pending job 0, the data created at options empty array. If I go to the tables here, Laravel app, job batches, we have total job 34, pending job 34. Now we don't have queue worker running, so it's still pending, it's not proceeding anywhere. So if I do this, it's not going to do anything. So for that we need to work with the queue worker command so that it runs. You can see now it's processing, so if I refresh here now, those pending jobs will be getting less, and that's gone. So all the data is inserted in employees, 10 or 1,000 employees inserted. So that's a success. Alright, so now we have the data and the ID coming here. Using this ID, we can get the data information from the database. So we can say, alright, so what batch is running, how many jobs are done, get this data, and we can display that. So what I do, I go back to the code editor. Here we are returning the batch. I'm going to put the value in session so that we can each time whenever we can get a batch ID, we can use it on every page. So here I say session, and in session I simply put the value, and I'm gonna call this last batch. So the last batch we work with, so it's going to be dollar batch ID. So we need this. So here we can also add a comment just to we update session ID every time we process new batch. And here where I'm returning, what I'm going to do, I'm going to return user to the progress page. So currently when we upload it, we submit, it is going to automatically redirect to progress page, and there we can also use query string and a session, both approaches. Let's see both. So I say redirect, and here I'm gonna pass the /progress, and question mark, say ID equals, and here dot, then dollar batch ID. Alright, it's gonna go there. I'm gonna send user there, and user will see the ID. Now in the progress, let's go to the file. So here progress.blade, currently we don't have anything, so first I'm going to get everything from upload and paste here. And now we can change, because we don't need a form here. I can remove this div, and we need to work with, so for the progress page we want to use the Vue.js, so let's do that. So I'll go back to here where the body is ending. Here we can add the script tag. So I say script, and it's going to be type text and then /JavaScript. Inside it we are going to run the code, and I need to copy and paste the CDNs we need to save time. So here I do that, and we paste it like here. So here we have the Vue.js 3 for the development, also for production. So if you want to upload the project to production, you can comment this one and comment that one. And yeah, we have XUs. So of this page here, we will be using XUs to work with the route. So when we want to get and send data, so we will use XUs through Vue.js. So we are calling that, and then the script tag for our code. So let's work with this. Now here, what I'm gonna do, first of all, I want to bind the app, and for that we need to give the main container of this an ID. So I say here ID app, and to bind the app with Vue.js, we can say here Vue dot create app, and here we want to pass a constant. I'm going to pass a constant like app. We're going to create in a moment. Dot mount, and here we simply say ID app. Now here, this constant we need to create, so we simply create here constant app, and this is going to be equal to an object, and here we will have data, and this will return further object where we will have some values. So here you can have, let's say, progress, and I put here a string. So I say welcome to progress page, something like that. Then I also create page title, camel casing, and here I say progress of uploads, and we also need the percentage of progress. So progress percentage, by default it's going to be 0, and at last I want a perms. So we need to get the ID from URL as we are passing the query string. So it's going to be null by default. Alright, now as we are passing these progress as these strings, we can display these here in our app. So let's do that. So here simply, what I'm going to do to check if our Vue.js is working, we say h2 here. H2 tag, and here to display the variable from Vue.js we use at and curly braces like this, and then you want to display this sentence, so just copy this and paste inside it, and it should render it. So here HR, then again we want here H5, inside it at page title, the another variable that we have here, this. So let's go back and refresh and go to progress, and you can see that we have those two tiles rendering through Vue.js. So yeah, that's working. Now we need to create the area where we put the progress bar, so it's going to be HR again. Now for progress bar, I go back to the boot swatch. Alright, here if I scroll down, you should see the progress bar, and here we have animated one. We're going to use this one. This is the maximum feature. With the maximum features, I copy this code, and here I paste this code. Alright, looks good. So we have here some classes, then we have role, I'm gonna break it to a new line so we can see it easily. Area volume. Okay, it looks like this. Now if I go back to our app here and refresh, you can see we have the progress bar. It's 75% filled because we have the width 75 and value now 75. If I change it to 60, it is going to be a bit less. So here, if I change 60, now if you want to display the percentage inside, you can also pass here. So if I say 60 here as well, so let's see how it looks. It says 60 here, or you can also pass the percent, so 60%. All right. If you reduce this to, let's say 40, and refresh, you can see it's 40. It reduced further. Okay, so let's work with this. Now what we need to do, we need to get the data, and according to that we are going to get the data related to. So first of all, we have one data present in job batches, and we're going to use this data, so we can proceed. So here in data, I'm going to say comma, and then methods. And in methods, we need to create a method that's going to be check if ID present. This is the first method we create. Now, when we upload a file, user will be redirected here, and if you remember, we are setting a query string here, so it will be having an ID in the URL. But what if user doesn't come from upload, it goes to straight away home page and then progress page, so we don't have any ID here, so we need to check that. So for that, what we are doing, we are simply let's go back to progress page, and here this function will deal with this. So I'm gonna put a code here for JavaScript, and that's going to get us the URL. It's gonna get us the URL params. So here, if I say console.log params, all right, and we need to run this function when this page loads. So for that, we will go here and we say created lifecycle method from Vue.js, and we say this function. This function will fire. So we are going to see console log now. And here I'm gonna inspect console log. So currently nothing, but what we want to do, we want to see the params. So what I do simply is go back, minimize this, go back there, and pass question mark ID equals 1 2 and refresh. So you can see here object ID 12, and then we can say some other number, hit that ID that. So we're getting the ID here straight away. Now if I remove this and hit return, we get empty object. So here we can put a validation based on this. Alright, so let's do this. If params.id, so if we have the params.id, then what we want to do, we want to set this .params.id. Now this is from here, so it is null now. We are setting it to params, which is this variable .id. So if there is ID, we are setting it to view variable. Alright, that's great. So what we want to do now, I want to create another function that's going to deal with this. So what I do, here I say get upload progress. And what I want to do, I want to run this function instead of the checking function, and this check ID function will run inside this function. So here we say this function, run this first, and this function will run and set up this ID, and then we can get the progress. So here we say get progress data. So here I'm going to say let progress, let's call this response. Response is equal to, and what I want to do, I want to check it every second. So I'm going to say here set interval. So they're going to be an interval of 1 second. You can set up as many seconds you like. So every 1 second we are going to check. And here we're going to say XUs dot get, and I want to pass here, let's call it progress slash data. This is going to be the route for it. Then what we want to do, we want to pass the perms. So we want to pass the ID because we want to get data for that particular ID. And here we're going to pass that. Then we're going to say then if we receive any response, say as a function, and the function going to have response, and then what do we want to do? Okay, for now I say console.log response.data. Okay, so the response we get just pass here. Now we need to pass the ID here. So let's call it params. And it's going to be an object, and that's going to be ID. It's going to be equal to, now we are getting the axios, and inside if we pass this, it loses the access to this. So what we can do, we can define the local variable here. We can let self equals this. Now we can use self instead, or you can call it anything if you want. We can use self instead of this now, and it will work. So we just self.params.id. So it is getting the ID of this, which is a setup here. So we are passing this ID. So we say if this ID is present, we are going to use ternary operator here. Then we say pass this ID. All right. Otherwise, if we don't have this ID from the page top, we want to check for session. If you remember, in the upload, I also added this value in session. So every time we process, we are putting last batch in session. So if we don't get the ID from there, we can also check the session. So here I'm going to check the session. So I get a progress played, and here simply to use the session value, we simply put double quote, and then here we say session, and then we say get, and we need to go ahead and pass the name and name of this value, and we pass it here. If we got the understanding, basically we are getting the ID from the URL. If it is not there present, then we are getting it from session, and we are passing it straight away to this progress data. Now we don't have this route, so let's deal with this. So here I'm going to create on the route. It's going to be get route, pass this progress data, and I'm using the same controller for everything as it's the same process. So upload controller class, and let's call the method progress for CSV store process. All right, I can also define a name here, and let's call it CSV store progress or process, anything you prefer. This is the method. We don't have it right now. Let's go back to upload controller, and here public function, and here request $request. And we also pass some documentation here. Alright, that's about it. So what we need to do here, we can put here try catch, so that we face any error, we get a log. So here catch and exception $E, and here log error $E, or IDD also, so we can see the error for us. All right, now what do we want to do here? We want to get the data from the table, from the Laravel app, from this job batches table, but we don't have any model that is dealing with this. So let's create a model, because we need to talk to the database. And yeah, so what I do, simply I go here, stop this, PHP artisan, and then I say make model, and I'm gonna call this model let's call it job batch. And what just happened unexpected? Okay, in the web I made some mistake there. Semicolon is missing. Sorry about that. Now go back to terminal. Clear. And we have job batch. Now let's go there. In models directory, job batch. Now here, first thing I want to define is the table name. So here, protected $table equals, if I go back to database, it's job batches. And also protected dollar guarded equals to empty array, so that we won't face any mass assignment issue. Now we can call this job batch in our code. So here, where we need to use it, here we can say simply job batch, and here we can say where. Now we have the access to ID, so we can check the ID. So what I do, first I put the ID in a variable. So I say a $batch ID, and I'm gonna say a $request, and here you can get the ID, or get the ID from session, because we are also putting in session. So if you remember, in session we can say session get, as we added the value in session here with this name, so we can try to get that name here. So it's gonna get the batch ID, and what we want to do, we're gonna say, using this model where ID equals this batch ID, we want to count. Alright, and this, if it is more than 0, this statement is going to be true. If it is true, then we can get the some response. So I say $response is going to be, I put this in back here, and here this time I want to get the data, so I say here first. Let's get first, and whatever we get, we want to pass return it as JSON. So we say return response, and then JSON. And simply put $response in it, and this will return it. Alright, so it looks all good, it should work. Now let's see if I go back to progress displayed. This function will fire, it is going to get the ID, it's going to pass this ID. We are getting that ID using request here. If it's still not working, we are getting the session ID. Now to show you, we can pass the session here. Either you can skip this from here because we are doing session here. It's just to show you that you can do it that way as well. So once you have the batch ID, you are just querying here. If the count is more than 0, then it's true. Then it is going to get and return the response. All right, and here we are checking console logging that response.data. So let's see what happens this time. So if I go and refresh, and let's go to network and response. Okay, first error, we have the class not found job pad, so we need to include it, and let's do that. So go back here, on top we need it. So use app \models \, and now if I refresh and go back here, let's go console log, we are getting empty string, which is also not right. So it's happening every second. So what I do, I go back to progress.blade for now, and here I'm gonna comment this. So this happens only once, once we have the data, then we see what we need to do. And here in upload, let's see if we are getting the data. So first I'm gonna see if we have the batch ID present. So here dd $batch ID. Yeah, let's see the batch ID, if we are getting the batch ID. So if I go back here and refresh, we get 500 and it says null. So go back here, that means we're not getting the batch ID. So I do go to progress, and here initially when we are setting this, so here we can say console.log, we can check for this perm ID, because here we are setting that. So simply put that here. Also we can check if we have the value in session, so let's copy that too. So I come and pass here, and let's console log. So here I simply refresh, and that's a null, that's an empty string. So we don't have value in session, we don't getting from URL, so that's the issue now. So what I do, I simply delete this, and we have employees. I'm gonna make this table empty for now, so we will have everything from scratch. So we have employees empty, we have field jobs empty, jobs empty, and at last we have job patches empty. So what I want to do, let's upload a file from scratch. So I go home, upload, and we get a file, 1000 CSV records, submit, and this time you can see we get console log both the IDs are here. So this console log returned us this ID as well as session ID. So that now we have value in session, so too, so it should work. So I'm gonna remove this, and here in upload, now we are deleting it. So let's refresh, and network 500. You can see we are getting the ID there too. So yeah, it should be fine. So if I move this and console log. Let's see here, refresh. Okay, call to undefined method response. Okay, it's a spelling mistake, sorry about that. Let's correct this. So where it's here, response, and we can refresh, and this time we have 200. You can see we're getting the data. Now as we're getting data, we can display this data accordingly. You can see here we have the finished job 0 ID here, and also pending jobs and total jobs. So what we can do, basically we can calculate the job, like how much percentage is done. So let's do that. I get a progress.blade, and here where we have the response, here we need to play some logic. So here, let's do that. So okay, so what we do, first thing, we have response.data, and that is showing us this data. So if I say response.data.pending jobs, we will have access to this 4, and response.data.total jobs, we will access to this value. So let's do that. So here, what I'm going to do, first things first, I'm going to say let total jobs. All right, and it's going to be parse int to make sure it is an integer. So I say response dot data dot total underscore jobs. All right, and so we have total jobs. Now we need to complete jobs. So we say let completed jobs, because we know pending jobs here and total jobs, so we can find completed jobs. So for that, we simply do parse int to make sure it's an integer. I will pass here total jobs, or we simply say, because it's already parsed, so it's a total jobs minus pending jobs. So I'll simply copy this and put here. Alright, so completed jobs is like this. So we will get the data here. Now if we say if, we can say response. Now if we are going to use multiple time of the thing, we can put it in a variable. So I need to use the pending jobs again, so I'm going to put here a variable for it. So let's say let pending jobs. So I'm going to call this there. Just cut it and paste it here. Now what we want to do, we want to use this pending jobs here. Cut this. Now I can also call this pending jobs here. So if I say if pending jobs equals to 0, that means all the jobs are completed already. That means the process is done. So we need to update this variable. You remember we created a progress percentage, so it's a 0 right now. So we're gonna say here self dot this is equal to 100. Okay, now we need to make sure we have self defined on top, otherwise it won't work. So yeah, it's 100. Now else now what we're going to do here is that we're going to say the same. We need to calculate, because this variable is going to be responsible for the progress slider, this to work with this number is going to be calculated from there. So this is going to be we're going to say here parse int, and inside it I'm going to say completed jobs. So I'm going to copy this and divided by total jobs. So total jobs, we are calculating the percentage here, and it's going to be multiplied with 100. And then we're going to say to fixed 0. So it's not going to have a point value, it's just going to be a whole number. So that's going to be it. And for now, if we see we have pending jobs 4, total jobs 4, so it's not going to make a lot of difference. But once we have a big data set, this is going to display. So let's put it, if we face any error, we will correct it. Now here, what we do, another thing I want to check is if this is this percentage is 100. So for example, this slider goes to 100. We want to stop checking, because here, if you remember, we have this set interval which is going to check every second, and it is going to increase accordingly. And once it is 100%, we want to stop that interval. So here we say if parse int, and I'm going to pass here self dot progress percentage. All right, if it is more than or equal to 100, then just simply stop the interval. So it's clear interval, and we pass the interval name. So here the variable we define. So paste here inside it, so it will stop it. Otherwise it will keep on going, and then it's going to create a problem. So yeah, so we have the data coming as we want, and it should do the trick. Now what I'm going to do, I'm going to test it first of all. So I'm going to bring the interval back, and here now all looks good to me. We have everything in that place, and it should. Alright, let's check if it works. So what I need to do here, first of all, I get it home, and we go to app here, job batches. We have a single, so I'm going to remove this so that we have everything from start now. So jobs is going to be empty as well. Alright, so Laravel app, we have so far no job batches. Now what we need to do, we need to make sure the queue worker is running. So let's have the queue worker running. Alright, refresh, upload, select a file. I'm going to select 100K this time, so it will take some time. Submit. Alright, it is doing it. You can see that pending jobs are getting less each time, and yeah, it's working as expected. That thing that we made okay, so we need to correct some thing here, because what is happening, it's doing it, but we so far not updating our slider. So let's update the slider here. So let's do that. You can see that we already redirected to this page with the ID, so rest everything is working. Let's see if it clears the slider as well. So it's gonna be, yeah, it cleared. Now it's complete. Alright, great. Now what we do, we update the progress bar here. So let's go back here, progress bar. Now we define these variables here. We need to pass these variables up top. So the first is this progress percentage. So I go here, and for now I'm gonna stop the queue worker and go back here. And here we are showing this. So here we need to pass the value. First of all, the first percentage where it says 40, I'm gonna pass progress percentage like this. Inside the style, we need to increase the width, so you can pass the using backtick. So you need to pass backtick like this, and then run this, and here instead of 40 we will say dollar, curly braces, and inside percentage. So it should work. Now here we need to pass it as well and colon in front, so it should be suffice. It should do whatever is required. And now if I go back, it should give us the progress. So you can see it's 100%, and this 100% is because those are already done, the ones already ran. So you can see that pending is 0. So let's redo it. This time 500k records. So jobs are done. Yeah, employees. So we have 100,000 employees here. I'm gonna truncate this too. And before doing anything, make sure the queue worker is running. So we're on this. Now I go back here, home, upload, and a brand new file. I'm gonna get the 500k CSV, open, and submit. You can see the progress is down to 4%. If I go to home page and I go to upload page and then I go back to progress, you will notice it will come to 7%. It's not starting with if you go to home page, and if I take the database out, and here we see the jobs are getting updated. It doesn't matter what page you're on. So if I'm home page, upload page, let's keep on going in the background. So that's 15%. I'll go to home page again, and here let's keep on updating. So you can see that we have a proper progress bar here, and it's doing it in the background, so you can have your user allowed to use your application as they want, and the progress bar is working. Everything is working, and this is the power of queues and batching in Laravel. Right, so all the code for this video is available for download. I'm going to process the 5 million records, and the sample going to be, you can see it will be from now. In a moment I will show you. For now, we just see that it's successfully. So far we have around 1,000 jobs here pending. So the jobs, basically, if you got the understanding, we have the based on 300. So if you like we made chunks here. So if you have a different number, job count will be different. So you can play with that. Now, when you be working with your computer and doing this in your computer, you might face few issues with some memory limitation or file uploading limitation. So you might need to change some settings there. So I have here a text created. So we need to basically update these in your PHP INI, or you can use for temporary basis this in your PHP script. So I'll leave this note as well as in the description so you can use it. So yeah, hope you like this video. Do subscribe, share, and leave your feedback so that you get more videos like this in the future. Thank you for watching, and let's see, it completes.